Hey everyone, welcome back to the season 2 of the Isherwork Sports Podcast. We've been gone for the past couple of weeks, and we're going to talk to you about it. And by we, I mean, of course, I have my dad here with me.
Welcome back. So let's get right into it.
Yeah. So we've been gone for the past couple of weeks, mainly due to some wedding stuff. But now we're back, and we're going to get back into it.
Yep.
So the first thing we want to talk about is we never got to do anything. We didn't get to ever talk about the draft stuff. So we're going to begin with talking about what you thought about the draft this year.
Yep. And I think last season we were talking about on the podcast about how the stat keepers were not there for the draft. This year you guys were. So I kind of wanted to get your take on what you thought about the draft, the format, the fact that we actually had a TV up there with the announcements and the names coming up, the slides. So I wanted to get your feedback on that.
I really liked the draft this year. Like you talking about it on the podcast last year, it sounded so much fun. And then this year going to it lived up to what you were talking about, and it was just a lot of fun seeing everybody back. And what did you think about it? Anything different from last year?
Yeah, I mean, definitely a big shout out to all the organizers, the commissioners, all the folks behind the scenes. Ahmed Kanan, he was there helping with the slides, making the draft picks. I think it just kind of gives it a little bit more of an excitement when guys are there. I think we had a better turnout than we did last year. More teams, more players, obviously. And then having, the music that's always there for the draft, plus having folks' names and pictures kind of show up as the captains and making their picks. So that was a great touch. I think, everyone really enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah.
Yep.
So do you want to go through, also based off of the Muslim basketball power rankings and see how that is, what they thought compared to how it is now?
Sure. Yeah, we can do that. Do you want to talk about any of the surprise draft picks or anything like that first, while you were there? Because from what I heard, you guys were trying to make predictions ahead of the picks. And I think some of those picks were dead on. Some of the picks were a little bit of a surprise. Yeah. Anything that you remember? I know it was a few weeks ago, but anything that you remember from the draft that, in terms of picks, that really stood out to you?
The first season, the Ahmed brothers not being together, that was one of the shockers. Him picking Saad over him. I think Osman picking Salim. Second round.
Salman,
second round. It was also one of the shockers.
Yeah.
But other than that.
Yeah, I mean, from my standpoint, as having the first pick, obviously, I think everyone knew I was going to take IJ. But I did have a lot of other guys crossed off my list when I was trying to kind of do a mock draft to see who would come back to my pick, right?
Yeah.
And then, surprisingly and happily, there were a couple of guys that were still on the list that I did not think would come back to me. Yeah. So guys like Matt, guys like Gauss, I really didn't think that they would last that long. And I was very surprised and very happy to be able to have the opportunity to pick those guys. There are a couple other guys that I had slated down for those picks.
Yeah.
But, obviously I went with the guys that I felt would fit out the team the best. So that... I think the other surprise I had really coming out of the draft, and it's not really about the picks itself, but guys like Kia, guys like Tejan, and a couple other guys that I've never seen play before.
Yep.
Now that we're 3 weeks into the season, watching them play and kind of really seeing their talent and what they're adding to the league. I know Tyler was back. I know he got hurt, but a guy like Chris is another new player that joined the league. Corner Q, there's a bunch of new guys in the league this year that I think are a great part of the league and making the teams better, more competitive, and more fun. So that was my kind of take back coming out of the draft with not really knowing what to expect from some of these newer guys.
Yeah. What do you think was the biggest steal of the draft?
The biggest steal of the draft? That's a tough one. I personally would say probably the best pick that I can think of right now is Dion in the second round, I think, for Monum. I don't think anyone was expecting him to like Dion to be as like a solid of a player as
Yeah.
he is. I watched him play a couple of games now. I know he missed one game, I believe, but he's just like fundamentally like he does everything right. Like I haven't seen him making mistakes. I haven't seen him being too aggressive or not aggressive enough. Like I feel like he just plays basketball the way it's meant to be, right? And on that team with Kia there, with Ismail and all the other pieces that they have, he's like the perfect guy to have the ball in his hands to come bring the ball up, right? Like last year, Monum played with L, right?
Yeah.
L was another great point guard, right? So Monum has this, I don't want to say luck, but like he has this ability to draft really good point guards.
Yeah.
So I would say probably Dion would be my pick. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you?
I think the biggest. Yeah, I think it would be Dion. Or also getting you getting Matt in the second round at the end. Also, I think that was a steal. Getting him that late. No, not that late. Sorry, like
What about Tajon? The fourth pick, right? I think
Yeah.
he was the fourth pick. So, was he the fourth pick? I don't remember. I think
no, I
he
think
was
it
the
was
fourth.
third. I think no, it was either third or fourth. I don't remember.
Okay. Yeah, because I think Yassine had. I think Yassine was the third pick, and he picked Sully,
Yeah.
and then Tajon went to Usman. So I don't know how Yassine feels about that pick, but I think Tajon, in my opinion, right now is the second best player in the league just because of everything that he does, and for him to not be the second, third pick, I think is a steal for Usman.
Yep.
Yep.
So now you want to talk about the how each team.
How each team is built?
Yeah.
Sure, we could get into that a little bit. Do you want to like pull up the rosters, take a look at some of these
Oh, yeah.
teams? Want to get your opinion on? And I know like the preseason rankings that Yassine and Ahmed did kind of went through a little bit, but I think it's good to get a little bit of a different perspective. I also do want to point out that we do have another podcast with Kia, L, and James that they started doing. So I don't know if you got a chance to really watch that podcast much, but it's always nice to get guys, especially some of the newer guys, their takes on what they thought.
Yeah.
So let's get started.
Okay, which team do you want to take a look at first?
I have it up by standings right now, so we can maybe just go down the list.
Yeah.
So the first team that I see up here is obviously my team, Rafa. So this is the roster. You have the roster up?
Yeah.
Okay, let's take a look at it and let me know what you think.
So, also speaking of the steals, I forgot. I think David Flores. You picking David Flores up
Oh, yeah.
late. That
Very-
late was
Very
good,
surprised he
very-
was there.
Yeah.
Yep, very, very surprised.
So as I'm looking at this, right? I think you built the best built team. Like every position, there's someone like really good there to fill in. Like center, you have a great center in Matt. You have the best point guard with IJ. You got Gauss, who they're like a good shooter, and he's there good and has like the energy to run back and forth. Also plays good defense. You have you and David Flores there, a little bit helping down low, and then you also have Yusuf there to also help out with defense, and I think you built the best team.
Yeah, no, thank you. Like so my strategy basically coming in to the draft was how do I build a team that if IJ is going to miss some time or miss some games or potentially miss some play time in the playoffs because I wasn't 100% sure about like how available he was going to be in the playoffs. How can I still build a team that's going to be able to compete with the rest of the league, right?
Yeah.
So I wanted to obviously go with size. I think last season we realized watching Monum's team, Sheikh Jarrah, that size is important, especially on a small court like this. So I went with Matt. Gauss being there was to me a legitimate starting point guard. Having him go play side by side with IJ, I think is just icing on the cake, because I think they work well together. I think he has the ability to keep up with IJ in terms of running the full court, open fast breaks. Great defender. I still remember last year he shut down Saad and other great scorers anytime he was playing against players like that of caliber. And then I just really wanted to have, once those first 3 picks went, I really wanted to fill out the team with rebounding and defense and a guy like Hasib even, right? So like I drafted him with the idea that he's one of those guys where he can keep up with players. He has a size. He's 6'1", so he gives me height. He gives me the ability to rebound. He gives me the ability to score, shoot, and run up and down the court. So I'm very excited about him. And so far, it's been great having him on my team. So I think Yusuf, Omer, those guys, like we saw last week, what they can do. They got their opportunities to shoot and score, and they did their thing. So I feel like I don't really have a lot of weaknesses on my team. David Flores hasn't even gone on the court for us yet, right?
Yeah.
We haven't played any games yet with our full squad. I think this Saturday might be the first time where we do have a full squad. So I'm very excited about that. Yep. Let's go and take a look at the next team, which is Rumla, Aeon's team. So I want to actually start off by mentioning a couple of things about Aeon's team. So Aeon drafted Ian with his first pick. I think that Ian is one of the most talented players in the league.
Yeah.
And the fact that he was able to get him and then also come back and pick up Maz with his second pick,
yeah.
I was like, man, this is going to be a tough team.
Yeah.
Right? Because they got, again, Aeon always ends up building a team that's like full of youth and like guys that will just run up and down the court and like hustle. He also got Tyler, who, we all know he got injured. So Tyler is no longer there, but they got a great replacement in Chris. So Chris is another big guy that's on their team right now. He's played 2 games now, and I feel like he is kind of catapulted that team into like a top contender, right? So I know it didn't come through the draft, but I think Aeon has a great team that they can kind of run with everybody. They have Umar still on the roster, right? They have Hamza, who came in for one of the other players, Isa, I think, who dropped out. And they still have Heather and Ridwan. So I think they do, at the bottom of their lineup, like I feel like they may have a little bit of a challenge scoring-wise, getting some scoring from those guys. But again, like with the starters that they have, like they're going to be very, very tough, right? So that's my take on them. What do you think?
Yeah, like the same thing that you said. Like I don't know if there's anything else like to say, but yeah, there's nothing else. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So next team on here would be Sheikh Jarrah. What are your thoughts on them? That's Monim's team.
Yeah. So let me just take a look real quick. Yeah, I think their team is another one of those teams that are like good, like built like good, right? A very strong team. I think that like this thing about their team is that they mostly use
Well, I mean, like you got a guy like Kia, right?
Yeah.
You guys have seen him play and seen the stats that he puts up, how quick his shot is and how quick he is on the court. So having it's essentially a star scorer makes the game a lot easier for everyone around them, right? Not to mention the fact that they have Ismail and Jacob guys. Both of those guys are beasts on the board, on the court, right? Ismail, like one of my favorite players from last year, he was on my team. He got hurt, didn't get a chance to finish the season playing on our team, but he was there with us the whole time. Like came to every single game. He's a great player and he can shoot, right? So the fact that you have 2 big guys like that, plus you got Dion at the point guard with to go along with Kia. You still have Akbar. You still have Monam. OT. He, I believe, played one game. I saw him hit a couple of shots. I think he's another one of those guys that's like a later draft pick that can be much better than where he got picked.
Yep.
So I think their team is built very well overall. One thing that I do wonder about them is if Kia isn't scoring or teams are focused on stopping him the way that Aeon's team did last week, like where does the rest of the offense come from?
Yeah.
Right? So that's the only thing, but I think they have enough talent to like kind of like figure that out on their own, and I think they'll be tough to play against.
Yep.
All right, moving on, we have Deir Yassin. That's Usman's team. Again, what can I say? Tejan, right?
Yep.
He's the second best player in the league. No offense to you, Kia. I think you're probably the top scorer in the league, in terms of like shooting wise and things like that. But I think Tejan, like I see him grabbing like rebounds on top of bigger guys. I saw him jumping over Sully to grab rebounds, block Sully, block, like he's had some crazy blocks this season, right?
Yeah.
So overall, athletic guy that can score, pass, he pretty much do everything. The second round pick of Salman, I think, was kind of tough. I think that's where they could have had a guy like Gauss or Ismail or somebody else, because right now I feel like, I know Usman is pretty much their center, but if they were to be able to secure a guy like Ismail or another center at least,
Yeah.
they would have a lot more depth on that team, and like Usman can slide down to a forward position, and Tejan can kind of do his thing without having to always be the leader in rebounding on his
Yeah.
team. And then they have Sumer. Sumer's been playing great. They picked up Pat Yassin. He's having a great season. So I think that team is actually going to surprise some people.
The only thing about this team that I think is like gonna be a little bit like bad in the future is like you were saying with Kia, if there's no one no one else helping out on offense. Like if you look at if I'm looking at the first game, right? No one else is scoring. It's Tejan with 32, and then the next one is Yasin with 7. So there's like nobody else there scoring. And then if I go,
I think game 2 Yasin carried too, right?
Yeah, game 2 Yasin was carrying, but like if Tejan's not there, I feel like that team is like gonna struggle. I feel like they're gonna struggle.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I talked to Usman about this a lot. Like he needs to step up, right?
Yeah.
I think there's a couple of things he's not doing right now. I think he's trying to be a facilitator and trying to be a captain, where he's focused on things that is preventing him from playing basketball the way he's capable of playing basketball. I think he's a great shooter. I've seen him hit shots over the years when we played together on the same team on pickup. He's actually able to hit threes consistently, right? So I see when we watch tape, like I see him passing up open mid-range jumpers, and I'm surprised. Like I don't understand why. I think Usman, what he needs to do is he needs to realize that Tejan and Yasin, those guys can only be even more dangerous if Usman becomes a scoring threat also.
Yeah.
Right? Same thing with Salman. Like Salman was drafted second, and I know people try to joke around with him and stuff, but he was drafted second for a reason, right? In the second round, he has the ability to make a difference in the game, and he just has to be more confident and try to score also. Like you don't look to pass so much.
Yep.
All right, so we're halfway through, huh?
Yeah. So what's next?
Janine. That's Yasin Zoni's team. So the roster is going to be a little bit different because they just recently traded Salim.
Yeah.
Right, for corner Q.
So they got Q, and then they traded Salim, right?
They traded Salim to get
Okay.
to get Q.
So
Well, I mean, so let's look at it this way, right?
Yeah.
I mentioned about Monim's team having 2 big guys. This is another team that has 2 big centers,
Yeah.
right? Brother Uthman and Sully,
yeah.
right? Sully was his first pick, and then he got Hakeem also. I think Hakeem is going to start playing better. I don't not that he's having a bad season, but I don't think he's playing up to his level so far this season. I think they're still trying to figure some stuff out, but I think they have the size to compete with people. I was surprised that they lost to Tejan last week when they clearly had the size advantage, but they just couldn't keep Tejan off the boards, right? So when you have big guys like that, you got to put someone on Tejan, the guy that's grabbing all those rebounds, and they just need to work on their chemistry and I think the strategy a little bit better.
Yeah, I think on their team, this is like a good thing. They're not relying on one guy to do all the scoring. It's pretty like balanced. Like if one person's missing, it's not gonna be like the entire team is like ruined. So I think like it's pretty balanced out. There's only one guy there.
Are you saying they're a balanced offensive team, or are you saying that they don't have consistent scorers? I think they don't have consistent scorers, to be honest. Like we've seen how teams have been able to try to force Sully to play a certain way in some games. Like Ahmed Kanan has had a great debut first game. We kind of shut him down in the second game. I think he still had double digit in points, but he wasn't as effective in the game itself. Sultan, I don't think he's going to score much this season. Sorry, Salty, but I think he's got to focus in on defense. Yassine, I think he has the ability to score, but he also has the ability to give his team pretty bad losses, right? And Yassine knows what I'm talking about. Like we talked about this before. That's something that he needs to work on to get a little bit better and be more confident taking jumpers. He hit threes against us, but I feel like he's still confused in terms of like what his strengths are. So once he figures that out, I think this team will be much better. And then Hakeem, like I expect Hakeem to put up like 15 to 20 points a game, and he's not doing that yet.
Yep.
All right, let's move on to load.
Yep.
All right, we got James. We got a bunch of point guards, right? So this was a tough team, man. Watching him draft, I think it was a little bit tough understanding the strategy, and I get where he was coming from, but I think everyone kind of understands, and I think James, he's mentioned it also, that the size is what their biggest weakness is, right? So they made the trade. They got Manveer now. They got Victor. So hopefully they're able to make up for some of that size. But Idris, Cody, all of these guys, I think they're kind of like low from last year, right? What do you think? Like they had Daoud got hurt, he's out. But I think they have guys that can run up and down the court, score, play defense. Same thing. I think it's gonna come down to strategy for them.
Yeah.
All right, the last two teams. Let's go with Gaza first.
So I know right after, so when L had back-to-back picks, right, and he got Wakas
in the first round, yep.
and
David Barber.
Yep. So I know I kept saying that three is gonna be like really dominant, but so far their 0-3 has not been as good as I thought. I thought they were gonna be one of the strongest teams, but I don't know.
So the interesting thing about his draft was I was in kind of the same position, right? When you're the first pick or the last pick and in a snake draft, you have the ability to pick any two players at the end of the draft, at the end of each round, moving into the next round. And where I thought that L really messed up was drafting Wakas first and then David Barber with his second pick, right? Because for the folks that don't know, like we do have a rule in the draft where you can't draft two non-Muslim players back to back. So the fact that you're getting these two players anyway, you should always draft a non-Muslim first because the next pick is going to be the Muslim, right? So if he took David Barber, then he could take Wakas. Then the third round, when his pick comes, he can take anyone that's on the board. There's no limitations. He doesn't have to go with a Muslim player, right? And unfortunately, I don't think he realized that at the time, and he ended up picking Wakas first. And I think when his third round pick came up, there was a bunch of guys on the board that would have been great fit on his team, but he couldn't draft them because they were not Muslim.
Yeah.
So that's where I think that really hurt. Also, I think that trade, I wasn't a great fan of that trade, especially like finding out after the fact that he made the trade just to make the trade. He didn't really wasn't targeting a specific player at that point anyway. So to me, I made a trade, and it was funny because we both drafted the same person. Last year when I made the trade to move up, I drafted AR. When he made the trade to move up, he drafted AR also, right? So it's kind of funny how that worked out. But I think that team, like look at their roster. They got Wakas, Dave, Barber. They traded for Justin Downs now. They have They have Saad Afzal, AR. I mean, it looks like a very solid team, right? Wakas is their biggest guy, though. That's the only thing. David Barber, 6'1", like he's there. I think he's better suited to play like a power forward position than a center position. But I think they're gonna struggle a little bit, and I think that's partially for a couple of reasons, right? I think that needs to. This is the first time he's a captain. So he has to kind of figure out like what it takes to get your players motivated, put them in the right position. I think the last week's game, like AR didn't even start, and I think it was AR's call. But if I'm the captain, I'm just like, bro, I traded up to get you. You have to start, right? I don't care. Like you're gonna start, especially when you're playing a team where like defensively, like you're not scoring. They haven't scored much, so that they need somebody that can play defense and rebound. But let's see. I don't know. Let's see how the season progresses. I hope things do turn around for them because I don't want to see them or anyone actually go without a win this season.
Yeah.
And finally, Al Khalil, Anwar's team.
Good.
What are your thoughts? So Anwar I thought had a great draft, right? He surprised everyone with that pick of not picking Wakas but picking South Qureshi first.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And then on the flip side back, he still was able to get Andy. Right? So
Yeah.
Andy, Saad, and Anwar is like great. The 3 first round picks.
Yeah.
Right? And then I think he took Wasey after that, and he still has Mahid, Qasim Mazhar. He traded corner Q obviously for Salim, but he has Nabil, and I believe that's the rest of the roster. What do you think of their struggle so far? They're 0-3 also.
I think it's the same thing like you were saying with David Barber, where they have like that like good center in Andy, but I think that he is better off being like with someone like with, cause like I don't think there's anybody else that's like a good like center to play with Andy, and then I think that they would need someone that they didn't get like another good center to.
Yep.
Yep.
To help Andy out on the board.
Yeah.
I think my biggest issue with this team right now is they're top heavy, and the top heavy guys are more of like isolation players, right? I'm not seeing a lot of movement, ball movement. When you do get ball movement, it's on the perimeter, and then these guys that do end up with the ball are still trying to make one-on-one moves. I think they need to figure out how to flow the ball better on offense and get the ball down low. Like there were a couple of games where I think Andy was being guarded by like Pat and Yasin, not Zoni, the other Yasin, Kira, and they didn't really look for him down low, right? So I think they need to figure out like how their offense should flow, because if it's going to be one-on-one type moves, then I think they're in for a long season. It's not gonna work well because they don't they're gonna struggle because the fact that most of the other teams that we talked about so far also have like a big three or a top three that can match up with them defensively. Look at my team, right? So when I saw that he took Saad and then he took Andy, I was like, all right. So I have IJ so far, right? What can I do to like match up with these three guys? Same thing with like David Barber, Wakas, and L on the same team. Like, how do I keep up with that roster? So I had to get Matt, a big guy. I don't need IJ crashing down low to get rebounds when IJ can play up top and go on fast breaks. Matt, I felt like would be able to offset Andy and Wakas, like David Barber to some degree. And then a guy like Gauss, who's going to be able to then free up IJ to either cover Anwar or to cover Saad, right? So now those three are all tied up. Then it's going to be, okay, who else is there on this team that how else are they going to score, right? Wasey is their third, fourth option right now if you go based off of the order of the picks. And I think, he like they need to figure out a way to get guys open for shots, and it's not happening when, at least from what I've seen so far this season, it's a lot of one-on-one guys are standing around watching, and the ball comes to them and they want to shoot, right? There's no cutting, there's no setting picks for each other, get each other easy layups, none of that. It's for the most part, every single basket I've seen has been either somebody trying to go one-on-one, get to the paint and score that way, or somebody puts up a shot and then Andy or somebody else gets a rebound and puts it back in. I don't really see movement to get people freed up to the basket and get easier layups. But they still have the talent, right? So I think every team is talented enough to kind of compete this season. What's funny is that right now, out of the 8 teams, there are 2 teams that are 3-0, 2 teams that are 2-1, 2 teams that are 1-2, and 2 teams that are 0-3. Right, so you have every level there, and a lot of these games were close games where it could have gone either way, right? So I think the league is it's going to be just as fun as last season, where aside from Sheikh Jarrah, like anyone could have won, right? Against each other, but yeah. So I mean that's I guess our take for the teams. What do you want to get into next?
Is it too soon to talk about we want to talk about the trades.
Yes.
So, what did you think about the first trade, which was Victor and Manvir for Justin?
Justin and who else did they trade? Saad Afzal.
Oh yeah.
Justin and Saad Afzal. So I think that was a good trade for both teams because I think it helps them both.
Yeah.
But I still don't like the way that their rosters are built, right? I'm excited actually to see Manvir play on James' team. I think this guy is a beast, like on the boards. I've watched him play pickup. I watched the last 2 weeks ago's tape. He just needs to show up, right? And he also needs to figure something out with his hands, right? I don't know if you saw that game, but there's a bunch of passes that literally like went right through his hands, and they were easy assists for layups. So he needs to figure that out. But I would, if in terms of grading the trade, so Saad Afzal to me is a rebounder, a hustle guy. He's kind of very similar to Manvir, probably not as big in size or as strong, but what L lost on that side by giving up Manvir, he gained from getting Justin, because Justin was one of my favorite players. He's a lefty guard that can drive, that can shoot. He has some size on him. He can push people around a little bit. I think that fits their offense better. Flow of the game a little bit better. Victor, I think he's still kind of getting used to the league. I've never really seen him play before. But from what I've seen, I feel like he can be a great player. And in maybe a couple seasons, once he starts getting more comfortable, I think he can be great. But right now, I would say trade's probably a little bit even, where James won the Manvir over Saad part, and then L won the Justin over Vic part. Yep. What other trades?
What was the most recent one? Salim for Q.
Corner Q.
Corner Q.
Yeah. Honestly, I was surprised with that trade,
Yeah.
and I'm not trying to compare the two players, but I I just don't understand why either of those captains wanted to make that trade,
Yeah.
right? I think I can see that Yassine probably wanted corner Q just to have a little bit more of a youth on side on his team, someone that can shoot. Salim's been struggling a couple of seasons now, um, but it's not like you're trading a guard for like a forward or something else to improve a different position. It's literally a swap of two players, right? So um, it is what it is, you know. Um, Also on Anwar's side, I don't know how Salim's gonna fit in, honestly. I feel like they are struggling to move the ball around, like I said. So Salim is one of those guys that on Yassine's team last year, this year, he's one of those guys that can spot up in a zone, get to an open spot, get the ball moved to him, and take the shot. I don't see the ball movement there enough, so I feel like Salim might not fit in with his ability like that well. But again, he's also a really great defender, right? And he's one of those guys that doesn't demand the ball much. So maybe that was part of the idea of getting someone on the team that will focus on defense and other parts of the game, so that way their top guys can focus on the scoring and taking the shots. So that's just my take on it. I just was kind of surprised by that trade.
Yeah, me too. I think most people were surprised by that trade.
Yeah. What else? What else do you want to talk about?
Is it too soon to think about the MVP? I think it's way too soon, right?
Yeah, I would say I would wait a little bit.
Yeah.
I think we're 3 games into the season. That's like a third of the way so far.
Yeah.
I think there's obviously going to be some clear favorites, but let's wait a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Let's see how the next few weeks go.
Yep. Talk about like how the injuries.
Oh yeah,
affected,
yeah. We had some
affected.
major injuries so far
Yeah.
this year. Yep.
So we had Tyler. No wait, I never actually got to like figure out like how did he get injured? Like what happened?
So from what I remember and what Tyler has been saying in the chat, Tyler went up for the rebound. L purposely stepped on the floor below him and tried to break his ankle, and that's exactly what he did. And a lot of the guys don't really know Tyler that well, but I'm pretty sure we all know L, so we believe that story 100%. L definitely tried to take him out. He's one of those guys that's competitive where he's like, well, I don't have AW anymore. Let me get rid of Tyler also from the league. Unfortunately for him, he didn't realize that he was going to get replaced by Chris, right? So that's a loss for L. But he's used to losing this season, 0-3, so it's not a big deal. But yeah, it was actually a freak injury. Like they both went off the ball. I was surprised Tyler actually stayed in and played a little bit longer, and then took himself out. And then I got him ice and stuff, and he sent pictures of his foot later, which by the way, funny story. Well, so when we first saw the pictures of his foot, Tyler, I think I don't know if you remember, but it's like you had your feet out and you were kind of comparing both ankles. I think it was who was it? Aeon who shared the picture, and the first thing I thought was what is wrong with this guy's toes? Because his toes are like so separated. I'm like, did something happen to his toes? Like, who is this? And then Aeon's like, oh, look at his ankle. I'm like, oh, this is Tyler's foot, right? So we got a little kick out of that, but glad to hear it wasn't. It's not. Hopefully, it's not going to be too bad, and you'll be able to recover soon and come back for next season. But that looked really bad when it happened, and also looked really bad when we were icing it down on the court.
Yeah.
Yep. What else? Who else got hurt this year?
Daoud.
Oh yeah, bad luck for Daoud so far this season. Week 1, he ended up going to the ER because of the heat and humidity in the gym, and then he was just literally just getting ready to come back to play, and he had an injury in pickup ball. I think one of the nights where I think he was going for the ball. There were a couple guys going for the ball. I think he ran to David Flores, and his thumb I think kind of like went back and it's basically like fractured or whatever. So he's done for the season. Also, he's not going to be able to play. So prayers for him and hopeful like a speedy recovery.
Wait, who is his replacement?
Joe. I don't know if you guys got to see. Yeah, you guys got to see him play last week. Apparently, from what I've been told, he's very similar to Dawood in terms of like he can shoot. I know he's a little bit taller, a little bit bigger, so I think he gives him a little bit more depth in terms of like rebounding and defense, maybe. But I don't know how good of a shooter he is. Like, and I think we all knew how great of a shooter Dawood is, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's like offensively, it's a fair, not a fair, but like it's an equal replacement. But I think I have to see Joe play a little bit more to see what he can do because apparently a lot of guys are really high on him in terms of his offense.
Mm.
Yep. So, what else?
What are some things that you're looking forward to this season?
Me personally, so this is my second season as captain, third season as captain, second draft, right? Obviously, in a league like this, we want to win. We want to beat all these other teams and stuff. But again, for us, I think our league is so special. It's so different. Like it's really about the brotherhood. Even some of the newer guys that have come into the league so far, I feel like they've felt that sense of brotherhood. I know I talked to Chris a lot, Ian, all of these guys, and I'm not just saying that because we play them this week, but I think they do feel comfortable being here. I think they like the atmosphere that we have. So I want to see that really continue. Like I want to see guys that get comfortable, feel like they're not just some, random dude in a random league.
Yeah.
I want people to feel comfortable, get to know each other, hang out. I think Yasin is planning on doing some like monthly get-togethers with the guys in the league and do different activities. So really kind of looking forward to that, getting to know these guys. And obviously, just messaging guys before our games, getting in their heads. I know Chris, he pretends like I'm not in his head, but I know I am. He's messaging me every day now, just asking me how I'm feeling, which tells me that he went to sleep worrying about our game, woke up thinking about me. So it's good to know that I'm in his head. Yep. Also, by the way, so I have my cup here, my mug, Yusuf's #1 fan, which if you remember, I got this last season.
Yeah.
And Yusuf's on my team now, so this actually works this season as well. What about you? What do you think? What are you looking forward to from this season?
Of course, like these podcasts, me selling the chocolate. I think getting to know like the newer guys in the league, doing more of like the getting to know you series, and getting to like talk and like get to know more of the different players that I haven't seen before, I haven't met, and just have fun doing these podcasts and selling chocolate.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, I think you guys are doing a great job. I think one of the things we implemented at the end of last season was like, going through the stats, making sure everything's verified before we post, or maybe we'll post it, but then we'll go back, verify, and re-upload the stats. So those are some of the more updates and things that were improvements that we've done so far this year. And again, I think, you guys aren't in the player chat, but there's so many times where these guys are always just saying how thankful they are and grateful they are for all the hard work that you guys as the stat team, podcasters, whatever, like everything you guys put in, right? So they're super excited, they're super thankful, being there before the first game, staying till after the last game ends. That's like a 4.5 hour window, right? Because the first game starts at 9, the last game ends at 1. You guys are there to set up, to clean up, take care of everything. Which actually reminds me of one thing, the cleanup part, right? So for all the guys that are watching this and show up to our games, I just do want to remind everyone that, the gym that we use, right? What we want to do is we want to leave the gym cleaner than it was before we got there, right? And unfortunately, last week, I think we noticed a lot of garbage being left in the gym, especially on the stage. So if we can collectively, right, as a whole, just make sure like whatever garbage we bring in, we throw it in the trash, right? I know I saw some of the stat keepers. I saw you guys.
Yeah.
I saw I think Anwar. I stayed back a little bit. We got up on the stage and tried to collect all the garbage. And you know, it's we're all grown adults, right? We're all men here. I think the least that we can do to help show our appreciation for the league and for everyone else that's there, for the organizers, you guys, is to just make sure we don't create extra work for everyone else, right? So I would just want to just remind everyone
Yeah.
to make sure they do that.
Yep.
Yep. You guys want to get into this week's matchups?
Before we do that, you mentioned chat. So we have a different chat, right? And I want to have take that someone said that I thought was kind of ridiculous.
Okay. Who's in this chat?
So it's me, and my sister and the other stat people, and then Ayan and Victor.
Okay.
And Victor said that he thinks that Kia is better than IJ.
Yeah, so like I was saying, Victor's already been traded once. So obviously his basketball IQ is not that great. No, but I mean, I you know, everyone's gonna have their take, right? I think, like I said, I think Kia's a great player. I think once we play their team, maybe you'll kind of see how they match up, right?
Yeah.
It's hard to. I personally don't like comparing players that haven't played against each other on the court at the same time, so you can truly see the difference. So, you know, Victor, when we play you, actually, who did Victor? Victor ended up on James' team.
Yeah.
That's smart. He got traded after we played them, so we'll probably play him late in the year. But don't worry, I'm gonna make sure I let IJ know what you said, so that way he's ready for our next matchup.
So now good matchups.
Yep. So week 4. Let's get into week 4, and we'll talk about your takes on who you think is gonna win this week.
So do you want to do like, do you want to do where one of us, do you want to go through each game?
We can kind of go through a quick prediction of each game.
Yeah.
Do you want to alternate games? You want to do it? You want to do it? Let's do this. Let's start with game 1, right?
Okay.
James' team versus Yasin's team. So Lod versus Janine. Both of those teams are 1 and 2. Who do you have and why?
I think I have Yasin's team. I think Sully is gonna really bother that team, especially without having a center or anything. So I don't think they're gonna be able to do anything against him.
I would agree. I think James has kind of realized that he needs size on his team. I think they're gonna have a tough time with Sully and Uthman, big size guys there, and I think Janine is kind of set up with the rest of their guys to match up with James's guards, and they're the quicker players. Yep. So I got Janine as well. Game 2, Al Khalil versus Sheikh Jarrah. Anwar's team versus Monam's team. Al Khalil is 0-3. Sheikh Jarrah is 2-1.
I got Sheikh Jarrah winning that one. I think it's because of Anwar's team really like struggling with, like how you said, with the passing and passing and like
the ball movement.
yeah, ball movement. So I just think that it's gonna like kill them, like how it's been like the past couple of games.
Yeah, I would agree. I think obviously it comes down to Kia and his ability to score and carry that team. I think last week when they ran into Aeon's team had a great game plan. They frustrated him. They guarded him a specific way. He still scored over 20 points. I think he had like 23 points, but I don't see Al Khalil having the right guys there to be able to guard Kia the way that you really need to guard him. So I would give them the advantage. But it would be interesting just to see how they match up, because Dion, I think, is somebody that can line up against South Qureshi,
Yeah.
right? You have size with Geist and Ismail. So it's gonna be, I think it's gonna be an interesting game. I think Al Khalil, they need some of the guys like Wasey and other guys to really just put their basketball IQ onto, like, share their knowledge with the rest of the team and come up with a game plan, because you definitely need a game plan against a guy like Kia.
Yep.
All right, game 3, Rafa. That's my team versus Ramla, Ayan's team.
I have your team. Only reason is because you have the best player in the league
Thank
with
you.
IJ.
Oh, never mind. Thought you were gonna say me. That's all right.
But I don't think. I just have no other reason. I just think their team's gonna win. I don't know.
Thank you. So I will pick my team. I think we do have the best overall team in the league, best player and the best overall team. I think that we match up pretty well against anyone in the league. But I will say I do feel like this is probably our toughest matchup of the season. I'm happy that we will have all of our players there for the first time.
Yeah.
But Ayan's team really impressed me last week, right? So we have to prepare. We can't take this game lightly. So it'll be interesting to see how we play. It'll be interesting to see if Chris shows up to the game. I know I was talking to him, and Ayan kind of mentioned also that he has some personal issues that he's dealing with. So hopefully he will be at the game on Saturday.
Yeah.
Looking forward to playing against him finally. I know we've been japping at each other in the chat a lot, and I'm looking forward to getting at least one block on him. That's my goal for this game. He called me out. He said something about my stats were same as like Bronny James, who just got drafted for no reason in the NBA. But I'll tell you what, if I'm getting one stat, it's a block on Chris this week. So Chris, be ready for that.
I think also your team's gonna win because you're gonna get in Chris's head a lot.
Yeah, I mean everyone on that team. Ayan is
Yeah.
calling me up every day asking me if I'll, my opinion on how they should run the team and why and how. Well, actually, Ayan asked me why or how he can get Chris to stop carrying the team. Everyone just like sees it, right? Chris is just literally carrying that team. Maz and Ayan are just they're there they're just there to just try to get free wins. If it wasn't for Ian and Chris, I think Maz and Ayan would be in Kansas City right now at a wedding or something. I don't know. But anyway, let's go on to the last game. It's Gaza L's team 0-3 versus Deir Yassin Usman's team 2-1.
How about you go first for this one?
That's pretty easy. I'm gonna pick Usman's team. L's team is garbage. L has been complaining in the chat. We were talking a few minutes earlier, and the fact that IJ was in the draft, L has given up all hope. He's driving kids around in a school bus every day. He has nothing else to do but to complain in the chat, and I think that he's eventually going to quit and maybe coach tennis or something at a local park. Tejan is gonna destroy them. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna also take Usman's team. I don't know how they're gonna stop Tejan. So,
I mean, if L does what he did to Tyler, that's the only way, right? We're just trying to injure him and take him out. But aside from that, I don't know. By the way, I don't know if you noticed, so I am wearing my Gaza sweatshirt.
Yeah.
This is for L. We missed you last season. The L that was happy and smiling all the time. Now it's the crying emoji L. So hopefully we'll get you back at some point this season. Maybe somebody will give you guys a win. You feel a little bit better about yourself and get your attitude fixed. Right? Yep. All right. That's it for the games. Anything else?
I don't think so. Just remember, everyone, to buy the chocolate. And remember, to also watch the other Muslim basketball podcast, and if the James, Kia, and L their podcast.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. Same here. Keep supporting us and the other guys as well. Looking forward to another great season and looking forward to having guests on in future podcasts this season. And we'll see you guys on the court. All right.
Goodbye. It sure works. Signing off.